I believe in love and its power, so I'm looking past it.
This book has made me so angry.
I'm absolutely loving it. I think he's too rude.
When I started my reading journey a few months ago, I was experimenting with different genres to see if anything really spoke to me.
And romance books truly stole my heart.
And since then, I've read so many romance books.
And I have loved almost every second of it. There were a couple I didn't like.
Today, I'm gonna be reading 3 popular romance books that the internet loves to see if they're worth the hype or if they're straight up overrated. Because both some of my favorite books and some of my least favorite books are extremely popular on the internet. In today's video, I'm also reading books from 2 authors that I've never read before, and that is one of my favorite things in the world. I love reading new authors for the first time, and I may even find one of my new favorite books in this video. We'll have to see. All right, if you love romance books and want to know if these reads are worth it, stick around. Let's get into it. The first popular romance book that I'm going to be reading is The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. I had seen this book a bunch on the internet, and the synopsis just makes it sound so good. Plus, I'd never read a book by Christina Lauren, and I figured, why not try a new author or authors, because this is a duo. And it really it sounds so good. It's about Olive, whose twin sister is getting married. And when some unfortunate events occur at the wedding, the bride and groom are unable to take their honeymoon. So they offer the honeymoon to each of their respective siblings. The groom offers it to his brother, and the bride, her twin sister. It turns out the sister of the bride and the brother of the groom actually hate each other's guts and have for years. So maybe it'll be a really long, unpleasant vacation, or maybe it won't. So I'm excited to see how this unfolds because that sounds so good. I will say, I have already started this book, so here are some of my initial thoughts. So far, it seems like there's a nice sister relationship in this book, and as somebody with a sister, I just like it. In particular, there are text exchanges in this book, which I actually really like. It's very unique. Actual written out text exchanges, and I just really love it. And so far I'm finding the sister dynamic fun. The main thing I'm a stickler about in books is if I feel like the man is a little bit too rude. And at least in the first part of the book, I think he's too rude. They have a very insulty banter so far. But yeah, it's nothing crazy. Like I said, he just might be a tiny bit too rude. To be fair, she's really rude to him too. So maybe it's just the vibe that's happening. Also, I will say, if you're sensitive to any topic that pertains to the things that happen when one gets food poisoning, you might want to be careful towards the beginning of this book because that is what makes the wedding go wrong. And they do talk about what that entails somewhat. So if you're sensitive to that, beware. But yeah, I'm just going to keep reading for a little bit, see what happens, and I will update with my thoughts. Okay, let's talk about it. Throughout the book, they gradually start to get a little nicer to each other, as this always goes, let's be honest. I would say this is a true enemies to lovers storyline. Normally, I'm more accustomed to a little bit lighter, oh, they just had some sort of small misunderstanding and they just didn't really talk to each other before. But this is the first one I've read where it's they really did not like each other. But I don't feel like this is a spoiler because I feel like this is just a cliche in romance books. It's my favorite thing when it's slowly revealed that the man had been noticing her all along. And that sounds so silly and so cheesy. Something that I will say that was kind of interesting, there's a couple things that the protagonist does that I'm just I feel like that's not the best thing to do. But that aside, so far I'm really enjoying this book. I feel like it's a slightly different writing style than I'm used to. I'm also finding it super easy to read. I've been dabbling in this book for a few days now, but I've read over 100 pages today, and it's just been super compelling, interesting, and just easy to read. There seems to be a pretty good evolution between enemies to lovers, although I feel like maybe it was a little bit of a quick from ambivalent to obsessed, but I believe in love and its power, so I'm looking past it. So yeah, I'm gonna keep reading. I'll probably finish the book relatively soon, either today or tomorrow, and I will for sure have more feelings. Additionally, I've seen this book has an epilogue, and that is my favorite thing. I love when books have epilogues because you get an update. It just makes it so much more real to me, even though it's fiction. When it's like, oh, it's 3 years later and we're married and this and that. I'm like, they stayed together. Great news. So I love an epilogue. Additionally, I want to know if anyone else tries to match their highlighters to the book because that's like my favorite thing. I just think it's cute.
Been reading this off and on all day. I just got to the last few chapters and I was just complaining, ranting really, to my husband. Because the last bit of this book has made me so angry. I don't think I can stand by the man in this book. I'll elaborate tomorrow, but we wanted to capture these real raw emotions as they're unfolding because it's made me so mad. Okay, thanks, bye.
Okay, so I finished this last night, and now that I've had some time to calm down, I feel like I can articulate my thoughts. But oh my gosh, I got so heated at the end of this book. I was passionately explaining to my husband what was going wrong. But something I will say is overall, I enjoyed reading the book. Despite a couple things I didn't like happening in the book, I was still super entertained, super invested in what happens to the characters. I'll try to explain without giving any actual spoilers, but if you don't want to hear like a vague description of something that happens near the end of this book, skip ahead about 30 seconds. Also, there's my pup. Look how cute he is. So the two love interests have a misunderstanding, and she's right and he doesn't believe her. And even when there's some proof that she's right about part of it, he still doesn't believe her. And it irked me to my core. And I will say, given the circumstances, it's somewhat understandable. I literally couldn't deal with it. That being said, overall, I think the book is like a solid 3.5. I would highly recommend this book to people that are looking for a love story that like is a little bit more like rough around the edges. It's not like bubblegum, sugary sweet. But overall, like I said, I still enjoyed it. I was super entertained. So for me, I feel like it's like medium worth the hype. Just because it's like a little bit different to most of the romance books I've read so far. But I feel like that just goes to show we all like different things. And that being said, I still liked it. I just didn't love it. And now time to move on to our next book, Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. For some reason, I feel like I'm saying her last name wrong. Yo hablo español. Te lo juro. But I feel like I'm pronouncing it wrong. And I will say I'm super excited about this one because I haven't read any of her books so far, and I love reading new authors. I love it. I think it's so exciting. So I am thrilled to be reading this book. And this book just sounds like a super interesting plot. It's about two people, Emma and Justin, who both think that they have like a date curse, where every time they date somebody, right after they break up, they find their soulmate. So after Justin goes viral on the internet for thinking he has this curse, they decide to make a plan and date each other so maybe they can find their soulmates after. So let's give this a go. I'm so excited. I was just about to start reading, but something I'll say is at the beginning of this, there's like a trigger warning section. And I don't know if I'm just like normally skipping the first few pages of books, but I don't know if I've noticed that in any other books I've read. I feel like that's like a super good thing to include at the beginning of the book and just very helpful. So I feel like that's already a point for her. Okay, I read the first chapter and I have some initial thoughts. I've only read like 15 pages, but so far it's like funny and interesting. And it looks like it's gonna be one of those books that switches perspectives every chapter. So the girl love interest will have a chapter and then the male love interest will have a chapter. And I happen to like that. I think that's pretty interesting normally. So I feel pretty good about this book so far. I'm gonna keep reading it. It's just fun so far. Okay, so I was just planning on reading for a good long while and then updating, but I've only made it about 35 pages in. And I just have to say, so far, this is the funniest romance book I've read. There have been so many times already that I'm literally like laughing to myself because the actual jokes in this book are quite funny. And I'm absolutely loving it. Also, I love how quickly like things are happening in this book. That's the update. Okay, so I've been reading this book off and on today and I finally finished it. And I just want to say pretty much start to finish, I absolutely loved it. The first like half of the book is like a lot lighter than the second half. It gets into some very complex, kind of heavy themes, just like exploring toxic family dynamics, family responsibilities, love that is so purely unconditional and love that is not so unconditional. Overall, it was just really, really, really well written. Very complex, definitely not just like a typical romance book that like doesn't deal with any other themes. But even throughout all the heavy themes, I will say that the two main characters, I think still treated each other really well, pretty much consistently through the whole thing. Very sweet interactions between the two main characters, pretty much throughout the book, even when life kind of got in the way for them. So overall, it was just a great book, very sweet, demonstrating just how powerful that unconditional, deep love is, and just how beautiful that can be in the mundane daily activities of life. So freaking good. I would highly recommend. I think this is a 5-star read. I think it has to be. Okay, moving on to our next book. People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. I feel like I have heard so much about this book. Although I can't say I know like what the plot is going to be. We can find that out together in a moment. But yeah, so far in my reading journey, I'm just such an Emily Henry fan that I cannot imagine this being bad. But we'll see. I feel like so far I've read the Emily Henry books that are like higher rated. So we'll see if all of her writing speaks to me as much as like Beach Read, Funny Story, and Great Big Beautiful Life. Okay, I just read the back of this. I had zero idea what this book was about. None. Apparently it's about Poppy and Alex, who had been best friends for years, so much so that they would take a vacation together every year, until something happened on one of these vacations causing them to not speak for the last 2 years. When Poppy realizes how special those vacations were for her, she decides to get in touch with him and convince him to go on one more vacation to see if they can work things out. So interesting. I think this will be the first like friends to lovers book that I have read so far. We'll see how I feel about it. That trope doesn't like call to me normally. I don't find it very interesting, but like I said, it's Emily Henry. She can pretty much do no wrong in my eyes. And I have no doubt that she'll convince me that this is one of the most interesting stories I've ever read. So I'm really excited to try it. All right, let the reading commence. Okay, check in on People We Meet on Vacation. I'm about 150 pages in and we'll totally just have to see because like by the end of the book, maybe I will have been completely won over. But so far, this is my least favorite Emily Henry book that I've read, which makes me so sad. And honestly, I think that's for a couple reasons. One, I find this to be her least dialogue heavy book so far. And two, I don't much care for the way that the chapters kind of bounce back and forth between 12 years ago, 10 years ago, 9 years ago, and then present day. I feel like it just like takes me out of the story a little bit. And I'm not finding myself to be like as interested in the history of these two characters as I am in like what's going to happen now, if that makes sense. So that's one way this isn't quite winning me over. Additionally, I'm just not super convinced by the friends to lovers thing in this. I think for me to buy that, there would have to have been like some, at least a smidge of like romantic interest when they both met. So far it's not looking like that's the case, but we'll see if they reveal that maybe later on. So yeah, so far the structure of the book isn't my absolute favorite and I'm not really feeling the romantic chemistry between the two of them. I feel like they kind of just have friend vibes. But like I said, I'm keeping a very open mind because I do love Emily Henry and I love what she does. And for example, with Great Big Beautiful Life by her, I thoroughly enjoyed the book all the way through, but it really came together for me at the end. So I feel like this has the potential to do that, even though I'm not quite feeling it so far. I'm not feeling myself being like super excited to keep reading or feel like I can't put it down. I'm feeling a little bit bored, which honestly with most of the books I've read hasn't happened too much. So we'll see if we can get into the swing of things. I'm gonna keep reading. Okay, so I have about 70 pages of this left. I'm almost finished with it. And so far my thoughts still stand. I will say they do explain like how the relationship kind of like led in this direction, which I highly appreciate. But I don't know, for some reason I don't feel very connected to either of the characters. And you know what? I do think that might partially be because of like the timeline hopping that happens in this book. I just feel like I'm not getting enough like present day love story. Like there haven't been a bunch of like beautiful romantic things they're experiencing in present day, or really at all. That might be a hot take because I think people love this book. And it's not like it's been miserable to read by any means. I've liked certain parts of their current timeline, but I just feel like there's not enough of it. So like I said, I'm not finished yet, but so far those are my feelings. Not feeling super connected to either of them, and I'm wanting more of the current timeline. But I'll probably finish this book today and I'll come back with my final thoughts on it. Okay, so I just finished this, and I will say there were for sure aspects about the ending that I liked and appreciated. I love when the main characters have personal growth, and I really appreciated some of Poppy's personal growth at the end. But I don't know, even to the very end, I personally felt some sort of disconnect to where they just felt like friends to me. But I know so many people love and adore this book, so this is very much so a very personal opinion. But yeah, I did not love this book. So that is People We Meet on Vacation. Still adore Emily Henry. This just wasn't my personal taste, and I'm sad. Overall, I think I'd give it like a 2.5 or a 3 out of 5. Maybe a 2.5. That hurts my heart to say. And those were the popular romance books that I read. Standout has to be Just for the Summer, Abby Jimenez. This is one of the best books I've read, period. Everyone should go pick this up. This is an absolute must read. This is a yes if you're into enemies to lovers. And this one, I just didn't love it because it's just personal preference. So I'm sure so many people would love it. I'm sure there are more people like me that maybe it doesn't quite speak to them, but it's worth a try. Thank you so much for watching. I honestly had so much fun. Reading these books has been the highlight of my week. And just thanks for being on that journey with me. And let me know your favorite popular romance book that I might have missed in this video, because I want to read them all.